Hello, it's me, Voda, and I have a very deep philosophical question to ask you. Have you ever stayed up late at night, gazing up at the stars, pondering your very existence as a human, and what tiny role your life might play in the grand scheme of civilization millions of years into the future, only to be struck with the profound realization that your only purpose in life is to draw Cho'Gath eating people in seemingly sexually advantageous power dynamics that I can only assume to be some advanced strain of a Vore fetish? No? Oh, me neither. But that Timo one is kinda hot, but let's just keep that between us, okay? And you. Oh, nobody made a suggestion this week. Well, it's gotta be here somewhere. Okay. And I want to play Cho'Gath.
Me like Cho'Gath. Me press Q and R. You go bye-bye. Me build 6 tank items. Still go bye-bye.
And really, that's why I like this character. I like being able to chimp out and just have fun. He brings me back to a simpler time where every top laner was a stat check and the game was just a clunky, ugly mess. I miss those days. But obviously, that's just my nostalgia peaking. Cho'Gath in our current patch hails back to the times of old. His kit is, well, painfully outdated, and honestly, he feels out of place with the current roster of meta champions. Meta, bro, just fucking speak, dude. What is wrong with you, bro? But this is the case for plenty others, and hopefully we see Riot give Cho'Gath some much-deserved love in the near. Bro, if you don't get your shit together and use your fucking mouth and your tongue to make movements and sounds and words that make sense, I'm going to fucking commit! Cho'Gath is classified as a specialist? Is that the term we're using for outdated champions now? Okay, Riot, let's erase that. I would call Cho'Gath either a hyper tank or a burst mage, and I'll explain that in a bit. Cho'Gath uses mana to cast abilities, and the primary bulk of his damage is ability power, with some true damage mixed into his kit. The majority of Cho'Gath's base stats are going to be focused on tankiness and a bit of damage, making his strongest attributes toughness and some small emphasis on damage and crowd control. So I mentioned earlier that Cho'Gath isn't really a specialist, as he has two defined roles in the current meta. You can either play him as a tank top lane or as a mage mid lane. These two builds are polar opposites of each other, but both offer a large amount of utility to your team. Cho'Gath's entire kit is based around area denial and pick potential, meaning that Cho'Gath is fantastic at creating opportunities for your team to start fights, either by picking off an enemy or by causing mass disruption. There are 3 primary build paths that I will be discussing in this video, and each of them highlight a different part of Cho'Gath's kit. So let's get right into the runes and items so I can show you what I mean. For starters, let's take a look at Tank Cho'Gath. Are you a glutton for punishment? Do you often find yourself requesting that your significant other beat the shit out of you? Not in a sexually degrading way, but more of a friendly, platonic gesture. No? Oh, okay. I'm getting really sick of nobody responding to these questions. I mean, seriously, I'm not that much of a degenerate. Grasp with the Undying provides Cho'Gath with some surprising damage on auto attacks, whilst also restoring health during trades. It's a no-brainer if you're building tank items. Alongside with that, we take Demolish to get plate gold early, bone plating to survive bursty trades, and overgrowth to get some more HP out of lane. Secondary, we run Triumph and Alacrity to help empower your E-trades just a little bit more. For stats, you want to run attack speed and resistances depending on your matchup. And for items, Tank Cho'Gath is very situational. You want to negate the largest type of damage you're receiving, whether that be AD or AP. The only really important thing to note is that Righteous Glory is almost always a first item on Tank Cho'Gath. After Righteous, you can go into more core items, or you can start to itemize for the enemy team. It's completely situational, like I mentioned before. Secondly, we have what I believe to be Cho'Gath at peak performance. Full AP. I take it some of you have had experience with sleep paralysis at some point in your life. If so, you may be familiar with this face. I see him. All the time. Out of the corner of my eye before I go to bed. His visage haunts me Arcane Comet, Mana Flow Band, Transcendence, and Water Walking. Secondary is Cheap Shot and Relentless Hunter. Stats are double ability power and a defense stat based on the matchup. Items are these. I mean, do I really need to explain this one? You're literally just a delete key. Protobelt and Ludens are a must build pretty much every game, and from there you can choose a third item depending on, again, the matchup. Zhonya's into AD Assassins, Void Staff into tanks, and perhaps a Banshee's Veil into a pick comp. AP Cho'Gath isn't as flexible as Tank Cho'Gath, but you still have options to deal with every situation. And lastly, we have a less popular build that actually makes sense to call a specialist, Glacial Augment Cho'Gath. We take, yes, Glacial Augment, Magic Footwear, Biscuits, Cosmic Insight, and secondary we run Taste of Blood and Ingenious Hunter. The only interesting part of this build is the Glacial Augment interaction with GLP or Twin Shadows, which are core components to this build. From there, you can go either full tank or full AP. Both are just kinda meh. Honestly, this build has its uses in certain comps, but honestly, I'd rather just play full tank or full AP. Regardless, it's pretty fun to perma-slow people, so if you're looking for an interesting build for Cho'Gath, this is definitely one of them. With builds out of the way, how exactly do you play Cho'Gath? For starters, it's build dependent, so let's talk about Tank Cho'Gath first. In top lane, Cho'Gath has it pretty easy. There aren't a lot of meta picks that directly counter him, and Cho'Gath's early game isn't horrible by any means. You want to max your E first, then W, and focus on farming while trading with your E. Your E goes through minions and will slowly poke out your opponent if they get in melee range to farm. I personally wouldn't suggest actively looking for kills in lane until level 6, or with the help of your jungler. If you're in a passive lane, it's not a bad idea to be using your ult on minions in order to farm up your health bonus. And typically, once you've built Righteous Glory, you can either start roaming or starting your own lane trades for kills. Outside of lane and in teamfights, you're pretty much a meat shield. If your ADC is fed, you might want to focus on peeling, but if you're the only frontline on your team, you have to play up. Just be cautious and pay attention to your backline. Cho'Gath's ult gives him ridiculous amounts of pressure if anyone on the enemy team is low. They won't want to go anywhere near you, so use that psychological advantage to zone out fights or pressure the enemy team into burning cooldowns to keep someone alive. Cho'Gath can also be an amazing pick champion and can start really good team fights for your team with his Q-W combo. Just think of yourself as walking pressure. The enemy team can't ignore Cho'Gath, so you'll either be peeling for your backline, getting picks, or frontlining team fights. AP Cho'Gath is much simpler. Go mid lane, max Q, then W, and when you get your ult, you can pretty much combo anybody to death. Rinse and repeat until you're fed or in an advantageous position to roam bot lane for more kills. In teamfights, you are the nuclear option. Don't like someone? Murder them. That's a pick. If you land your Q on multiple enemies, free team fight. Of course, it isn't always that easy, but AP Cho'Gath isn't really complex. If you land your abilities, you're already doing the best you can. Now, let's take a look at Cho'Gath's abilities so you can truly understand what it means to be a walking menace to society. For starters, we have his passive, Carnivore. Whenever Cho'Gath kills a enemy unit or structure, he gains a little bit of health and mana back. This passive makes it so that Cho'Gath can sustain himself in lane much longer than most other champions. His Q is Rupture. Cho'Gath creates an AoE effect that deals 100% scaling magic damage, knocks up enemies, and slows them for a little bit after the knockup. This is your nuke ability, should you choose to build AP, and for tank builds this allows you to get into ulting range much easier. Cho'Gath's W is Feral Scream. Cho'Gath literally just screams. It does a bit of magic damage and silences enemies for a small duration. His E is Vaporal Spikes. When activated, your next 3 auto attacks become empowered, gaining a small bit of bonus range, a small bit of magic damage, and also apply a slow. The damage of this ability scales with how many stacks you have, moving us right along to his ult. Feast. You eat people. Feast does true damage. When enemies are low enough HP, you will get an indicator on screen to show that they are edible. Upon eating said champion, you are granted a stack, which makes you bigger in size and also grants you a permanent stacking HP buff. The more people you eat, the bigger and beefier you get. You can also eat minions and monsters to a limit of 6 stacks, but Dragon and Baron count as champion stacks and can be consumed infinite times. Wow, that is a big cockroach. Oh right, we should probably talk about combos. Luckily for you, there aren't really any fancy combos with Cho'Gath. Q, W, E, and R will do the trick. Sometimes you can even start trades with your E and use your Q and W accordingly, finishing everything off with an alt. And congratulations, you have a Vore fetish. Being that you're now a master at Cho'Gath, go, my children, annoy the fuck out of people on Summoner's Rift, and please, enjoy yourselves. Anyways, that's all for me. Tell me what you want to see next in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.